Hey everyone, Aaron Lovejoy here for Nights at the Game Table, and we're going to do another episode of True Metallic Metals. This time we're going to do it on silver. So, the first thing we got to start is by picking a cool color for our mid-tone, for our base tone colors. So I'm going to go with this Lead Belcher from Citadel Paints. It's kind of a mid-ish color silver. It will react well to my shadow colors, and it'll also react well to it will let my highlight colors show up a little bit better. So the first thing we're going to do is we need our Lead Belcher and a little bit of brown and or black paint to mix into it. So I'm going to take my Lead Belcher, mix it into a different pile here, a little bit of brown, which gives it kind of an earthy color, and a little bit of black. So I mix those two together, and that will give me a nice shadow color for my silver. Now, mixing those colors in will still give me a little bit of the metallic flake that I had before, but a lot of it is gone. It'll be covered up by our more opaque colors. And I want this because I don't want it to be super shiny. It's in our shadows. So I'm going to start here on the torso and paint in the side areas, which are going to be shadowed, the bottom of the torso, and the other side. Then I will just grab my Lead Belcher and start from the middle or from the top and paint that color down. If I have too much paint, I just sort of wipe my brush against a paper towel and blend those colors in. So I have a nice mid-tone color in the middle and then darker colors on the side and the bottom. I'm also going to grab a little bit darker color for the top of the shoulders. So we've got that. I'm also going to do one of these shoulder pads, just quickly base coat it out. The nice thing about wet blending is you can put all the colors on at once and see if you actually like them or not. So on the shoulder pad, I'm going to start with the darker color down at the bottom. My light is going to hit at the top and move forward because it's a metallic surface. So my highlight will be right around there on the shoulder pad, and then it will get darker at the top, again getting lighter in the middle, and then darker at the bottom again. So that being said, I'm going to put a little bit of this dark color on at the bottom of the shoulder, grab my mid-tone. Notice I didn't even wash out my brush. This is all very fast. And paint it towards my shadow color there. Can also do these side pauldron things, whatever those are called. And then I'll use a little bit darker color at the very top. And that goes all the way across. If you notice, I'm using this big hobby brush. This is a size 8. And it works great because it holds so much paint. I can paint over all these little details, cracks and crevices. Paint gets everywhere, and it's very, very fast. So then I'll grab my darker color, paint the sides of that top part of the armor, and then also put some at the bottom of this shoulder pad back here. So basically what I have is I have it dark to lighter, darker, lighter, darker. So it just kind of goes in and out of brightness. Then clean off my brush. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my highlight color, which is the Secret Weapon engine metal. It's a very light silver, so it'll be good for a highlight. And I'm going to put that in. My lighting will be in a circular fashion, is always in a circular fashion. So I'm going to put it right over this wet paint, and it's going to go right over some of these different metal plates of armor. When I'm doing metallics, the light always hits from the top and moves forward on the metallics. So that's what it tells me it's a metallic object. On the shoulder pads, they're a curved object. They're not really like a sphere, but they're more like maybe a cylinder. So I'm going to have my light right here next to this big old rivet. But I'm going to put it in a sort of a circular fashion all the way across this plate. Again, my paint is still wet a little bit, so it's helping me blend in the color right on top of the other color. So this is a really quick way of base coating, just painting all the colors at once. It'll take you just as long to base coat this model with one color as it will with three, so might as well do it with the three colors. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my lighter highlight color up on the top of these, and then leave it darker right in here. So we've got those on there. Now I'm going to show you a couple different ways to shade this and highlight it. The first one will be with a wash. So I'm going to grab this other model. This model is just base coated with lead belcher, and it's base coated with a gold color as well. So our lead belcher is just all one color. We didn't do the light, dark, light, dark. This is just for going super, super fast. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of our Nuln Oil and some of our Agrax Earthshade. Shake that up a little bit. And actually, let's use this handy dandy holder for my inks so they don't fall over. It's also got these cool little grip things so it holds the pots open. Okay, so I've got these colors. I'm gonna put this on sort of thick, and then I'm gonna take a bunch of it off. So putting the ink in the, or the wash in the back, I can bring it all the way to the front, but I'm definitely making it heavier and leaving more towards the front end of this shoulder pad and the back end of that shoulder pad. Wipe my brush off so it's clean, and then I will remove the wash from the center plates. I can also do that while it's still wet with Nuln Oil. Really, really dark. And again, I'm putting it mostly in the very back of the shoulder pad and the very front of the shoulder pad. So this will give me more of a contrast right there. Clean off my brush and wipe it away. Now, while that's drying, heck, we could do it also with the gold that I have on here. And this gold was base coated with this brass castings from Secret Weapon Miniatures. So we're gonna use a little bit of our Seraphim Sepia wash from Games Workshop. And again, we're putting it on the sides and the bottom of the armor. Also on those little front plates, you can put it right there. So this is a very quick way of shading this metallic. Wipe away what we don't want to leave, and then we'll also put in a little bit of the Agrax Earthshade. Get some more. And I will put it in all the shadow areas. Try not to cover up all your Seraphim Sepia. So that's a quick way to wash everything and kind of control it so it doesn't look too washed. Like you don't want it to obliterate all the work or all the paint that you have on there. So we're just kind of putting it on thick enough to make our shadows darker and then leave our highlight areas still kind of highlighted. So we're gonna let this dry and come back to it after we do the other model. All right, so we're back to our original model that we actually wet blended our base coats on. Now, you could also use some washes in here too, but I would like to try to stay away from that because I don't want to have to wait for those washes to dry. So I'm trying to cut out a step. So now I will start by adding some deeper shadows. And to do this, I'm going to grab some of my Rhinox hide with a little bit of my black to make a really dark brown. And then I'll just take a little paint from my palette. I just always grab it straight from my sponge and make kind of a wash out of it. A little bit thicker than a wash though. And what I'll do is I'll take that color and put it down in my shadow areas, really heavy. Then take my blending brush and just kind of feather it in. So we're getting some darker shadows in there and then our brighter highlights on this side. So I'll do the same thing on these shoulder pads. Maybe starting in the middle of the shoulder pad over here. and feathering that in and pulling it down. Same on the back. Just gonna feather the side of that and pull it down the shoulder pad. So it's really dark up on top and really lighter down in the front. On the front armor, I'm also going to put some of that darker shadow color just to kind of kill some of our shine from our metallics. And again, I'll kind of feather that in and maybe pull the paint up. I can actually pull that paint right up that little edge there. I'm gonna do it on the back as well. Bottom of the shoulder pad. Take my second brush. Pull that up a little bit. So now we're getting more contrast in there. It's looking more like a shape of a shoulder pad rather than just this 2D image. Got that on there. You want to remember everywhere that's like undercut will have like a shadow. So on some of this armor where it's curved up, I'm going to put a little shadow at the top of that. So right there, the front of this armor could be a little bit darker. Again, I can use my finger to rub paint off if I need to. The back of the shoulder pad will have darker paint in that little area and at the top of that. So that gets us all our shadows in, and now we just need to start sort of blinging it out. If this is a bad guy, I'm going to keep his armor, the metals, like more in the browner shades. If he's a good guy, I want to add like a little bit of blue to it. So I'm going to use this blue verdigris color, actually from Secret Weapon Miniatures. It's just a nice blue color. And this will add just a little bit of tone to my blue armor. So this is going to be a good guy. He's got a bluish tint to his armor because he's good. And I'm going to make a wash again. This color is already a little bit see-through, so you don't need a whole lot of water. But I'm going to add a little bit of blue, and I'm going to add that to my armor. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of wash it on in the shadow side of the model. And then take my blending brush and blend that in. Now I want to get rid of most of it. I just want the blue to be like a little bit tinted. So I'm just taking my blending brush and wiping away as much of it as I can. I'm going to do the same thing in his shoulder pads, just to give them a little bit of a blue tint. And you can do this with any color. If you want to have them have sort of pinkish armor, you could use pink or magenta. Purple works great. Like I said, for if it's a bad guy, if he's like a chaos warrior or something, you could use shades of yellow or red to kind of give him that evil feeling. But don't make it too red. Like it's always got to be a really slight tinted color. So we got that in there. I'm going to put my reading glasses on again so that I can see all the little details. And we are just going to start taking this engine metal color from Secret Weapon Miniatures. It's a really light silver. What I'm doing is I'm kind of mixing it up on my palette, and I'm flattening out my brush. So as I pull my brush away from the paint, I'm kind of flattening it and making like a little chisel. This allows me to use really thick paint, but it thins it out enough to where it's not too much to put on the model. And from here, I can start adding little highlights. Usually I start in areas I know that I want to be the brightest. Everywhere where the armor has an edge, you're always going to put a highlight in that spot because that will always be an area that shines. Also, any area that's like undercut or has an edge to it, even if it's the bottom of an edge, like on this armor, it will have the highlight at the bottom of that. It can also have a highlight at the top, but metallics always have highlights at the bottom of things. It's one of the ways we can know for certain that it's a metallic item. So like on the shoulder pad, I'm going to put it at the bottom of the shoulder pad. Let it run around the edge. There's actually a couple lips to the bottom of this. Just get that there. I'm gonna run it on the inside edge here. So basically what this is doing is it's telling us where all the details are, where all the edges are. Right up like that. Put it across the middle. And right back down the backside. You can also use your thumb to like wipe off paint. If you have too much on your brush. So we get all this area roughed in. Then we should be able to start seeing the metallics a little bit better, or the details of the metallics a little bit better. And do the tops of these rivets. If you can kind of just paint a little dot in the middle or up towards the upper edge, like on this one, you'll have that nice ring of darker color around it, and it really helps it to show up. Again, on the chest armor, we'll hit the bottom edges of this armor with a highlight. So I'm assuming my light is hitting from the front and over a little bit. So it's on this side is the light side, and then this side is a little bit darker. So my highlight will go on the inside edge of this plate right here, and then the outside edge of this plate. That helps reinforce the way my light's showing up on the model. It just looks a little more interesting than if it's straight up and down. So if you want something to look a little bit brighter, you make the line a little bit thicker, and if you want it to look less bright, you leave the line really, really thin. If you mess up, don't fear, because you can always bring back in your mid-tone color and just kind of clean up some areas. I'm gonna put my brightest highlight on the front of the chest here and right down onto the first armor plate there. Got that. I'm gonna highlight the edges of these little shoulder pad things. It's like a little piece of the armor that's kind of tying together other pieces of armor. So if we highlight that, it will show up really well. And highlight the inside edges. Anything that's gonna be other colors, I take this time to paint in black, just so it helps me to see my metallics better. Let's paint that black. And then I can just come back one more time with my dark colors. Like I'll take this Agrax Earthshade, put a bunch of black in it. So it's like a blackish brown. And I'll take very small amounts and just sort of line those edges of armor. These edges up here, hit some of my deep dark spaces, kind of take a look at it and see if I like the contrast. So true, this takes a little bit longer than washing it, but in the time that you're waiting for the washes to dry, you could have painted it like this. So for me, I would always paint it this way. But if you're not confident in your brush stick skills, you would use the washing method. So we got that. Let me just black out this helmet real quick so I can't see any white. Okay, so there's my silver. I'm gonna put a couple more highlights in, especially right here where our light's gonna hit. Put a circle of light. And on the chest, I'm gonna reinforce that circle of light as well. All right, so that's the true metallics on that side. We're gonna switch back to our washed model and do the final highlight on it. So you're gonna notice that things aren't not quite as refined on this one as they are on the other model. However, it still looks really good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little dry brush with our engine metal color. So on our washed model, our details aren't quite as crisp because of the washing process, but we can kind of tidy that up with a little bit of dry brushing. And this is super quick. We'll take a nice flat brush. This is a little chisel brush from Army Painter, and I'm going to load it up with some of our engine metal from Secret Weapon Miniatures, and just wipe off most of that paint. So maybe wipe it off, put some more on. I want to get the paint deep down in the bristles, but I also want to get most of it off. And what you want to do here is lightly dry brush this model. So we're just trying to pick out those little edges, and that's it. You can kind of go from different angles. Hit the tops of all those rivets. You get that dry brushing on there. You can do the same thing with the gold we'd washed as well. So I'm going to use our Alchema Citrina from Scale 75. Again, a super, super light color that we're hoping will show up with a light dry brushing. So I'll wipe all that paint out. In this case, from the armor, I'm going to come from below because all the cracks are from below. And we're just going to try to highlight the edge of that armor. We also want to highlight the edges of this armor on top. And maybe on top of his shoulders. So it's a little rougher, a little less control, but it still looks really good. Either way, both methods are very quick and easy to do. Let me show you on our other model. I'm going to add one more level of detail, and that is doing some little cracks in the armor. So all these guys are out fighting, and it's safe to say that they'd have lots of little scratches and dings on their armor, and sometimes that could be the difference between, you know, a best painted in a army painting competition or whatever. So also it just makes them look more lived in and more natural. So I'm going to grab some of this Rhinox hide with a little bit of black, just to make a really, really dark brown. And again, I'm using my my Artis Opus 00 brush, so it's more of a fine detail brush. And I'm flattening my brush out into a chisel shape. So it's a very thin layer of paint. And I'll come in here and I'll just start making little scratches. You gotta be careful because the paint is so thin on the brush, it will actually dry out really quickly. Sometimes what I do is I jiggle my finger a little bit to make the scratch uneven. And that looks really cool too. Then you don't have to worry so much about, you know, being perfect. I try never to have vertical scratches because that looks really weird when you highlight it. But in this, I try to never have vertical lines because it's very hard to put the highlights on them. So in this case, I'm trying to have everything either parallel with the model or, you know, like a 45-degree angle or something. You don't want to have all the scratches in the same angle, but A few of them in the same angle is totally fine. So I put on a couple of those scratches. I can come back with my engine metal color, which is super light. Again, flattening out my brush, and I put a small underline under the scratch. It doesn't have to go perfectly the whole way. It can be kind of choppy, like in and out, but you do need a little bit of an underline because it looks really cool and it makes it look 3D. So put those little scratches in. Now I've got this cool scratched up armor. I'll put one maybe across some of these front plates. Like he got whacked with a sword there and it jumped across and it hit it right here. So put that scratch in. And underline it. Now you got some beat up metal. Looks a little bit cooler than it did before, and you're ready to battle. So that's painting True Metallics silver. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you next time.